Hello everyone, I am Conquering History Games and welcome to another guide here for the world of Kaiserreich, Hearts of Iron 4. Today we are going to be covering a country that was chosen by a Patreon. Remember, if you donate $5 or more on Patreon a month, you get to skip the line and choose a specific guide for me to do. It doesn't have to be Kaiserreich. But today's was chosen by Game, longtime subscriber, Patreon, and moderator in my live stream. You might have seen him a couple of times. So, Brazil is really, really in depth. So in depth that I'm actually going to do something I've never done here before. Usually I take a little bit of time in these guides to talk about the specifics of the people who are in the game. So, for example, taking a look at, explaining who some of the generals are, but there are so many, and so many of them are actually so interesting that what I'm going to try to do in the next week or so is put out a separate video in which I'll talk a little bit about all the... Oh, sorry about that, headphone users. That came out of nowhere. But I'll try to do a separate video in which I'll talk at least a little bit about some of these generals and field marshals and presidential candidates and things like that, because I think this guide's going to be long enough without me having to do all that. So I might as well make it a separate video since I know not everybody's interested in it. So before we start going into the political things that happen in Brazil, because Brazil is it's very similar to the United States of America in Kaiserreich, where you're mostly just getting ready for the election in late 1936, and until then you're mostly sitting around. You're just setting up and doing your original researches and things like that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about the starting situation, and then I'm going to jump ahead to the election, and we'll work from there. So, first things first, you start with 3 research slots, so that's kind of nice. Though you do not have infantry equipment 1, you do have transports. I'm going to try to always mention if your country has transports or not, because I've been burned a lot of times in a lot of mods where a country does not even have a basic canoe or something research, so they can't do naval invasions. But anyway, yes, you do have that, but no motorized, no regular equipment. You do start with engineers. You only have the first level of tanks, no other artillery, no land doctrines have been pre-researched. You have the 1933 level submarines and destroyers. You're behind on cruisers, and you do not have access to carrier technology. In terms of capital ships, you only have the best thing that you've got going for you is the 1924 Panzerschiffel. Well, you do have a basic dreadnought available here. Besides that, almost nothing available to you in terms of capital ships, no naval doctrine pre-researched, 1936 level technology of close air support and naval bombers, but you only have the interwar fighters, no tactical bombers either, no engineering pre-research. That would be a little bit weird for a country that at this level of technology, and nothing here in industry pre-researched either. Alright, moving on. Let's go ahead and assign some things here to get rid of the alert. Incidentally, I don't know if I'm going to upload it first or if I'm going to upload this first, but I am going to have a Brazilian campaign going around this same time because I was having so much fun doing the guide that I thought, you know what, I'm going to play a Brazil game. So go keep an eye out for that. Now, in terms of factories, you have 14 civilian factories, 7 of which are being used up by consumer goods. At the moment, you also are suffering a penalty to construction speed because of the stability. Dockyards, you've only got 1. And military factories, you only have 7. Divisions, as far as your army goes, you've only got 5, and it's just this mishmash of different unit templates. The infantry division is fine, it's 18 width, but besides that, you just got a bunch of, frankly, garbage, representing the decentralized and not too professional nature of your army at the start of the game. Now let's talk about national spirits. You're currently social conservative. You have the election coming up in October of 36. It is an election year, so election year tensions are increasing your daily political power cost by 0.20. There is extreme decentralization because the states are pretty autonomous, which lowers your daily political power gain by 0.05, as well as reducing stability even more. You're also recovering from a civil war that happened in the lore of Brazil and Kaiserreich, which lowers your daily political power gain by another 0.05, as well as reducing war support by 15% and increasing your justified war goal time by 50%. So you're not really going to be able to realistically get aggressive until you're finished with that. Although you could, I guess, if you started early enough, and depending on what, like if you went national populist, for example, you could try to do a war, but it's going to take a long time for you to justify it. But I'll talk about where you get rid of the wake of war and things like that later. And you have a divided military, which hurts your division organization by 20% and your planning speed by 10%. Now, this is a particularly interesting one because everybody gets rid of this the same way, or I should say, everybody has access to the same two options to get rid of this. But it's almost like a philosophical question as far as which one you're going to do. Moving on, let's take a look at the focus tree and talk about stuff that you can work on from the beginning. Now, oh wait, there's one more thing I wanted to show. So in terms of your factory count, a lot of this is Amazon up here. So as you can see, you can either put 0 or only 1 factory in a lot of these areas. Do remember, if you haven't played in South America in a while, that you have these new impassable areas here created by the Amazon. So there are some areas that you don't have access to at all. So for example, let's say I wanted to draw a front line. I could do it here against Uruguay, I can do it here against Argentina, I could do it against Paraguay, I could do it against Bolivia. But once I come down here to Peru, there's an impassable area here, so I can't draw a front line against them. I cannot do it to Colombia or Venezuela. I could do it up here, or wait, no. Why not? That shouldn't be impassable. Okay, there used to be a way to, I guess they slightly shifted that tile. Anyway, so the point is, you cannot directly overland attack your northern neighbors, in case you were thinking about trying to grab Venezuela or something for oil early. You're going to have to build Marines if you want to make that play. Alright, moving on. Let's talk about focuses that you can work on from day one. So, a lot of this stuff kind of blurs together here. First, you have the bridging of the Brazilian archipelago, which is a reference to how the way Brazil is you have, as I was just showing, areas with basically no capacity to build factories up here. And then there's just major cities which are virtually islands within that. Sorry, 1 second. It's early in the morning, but I live under somebody, so they must be using their water upstairs. I don't know if you heard that. So for example, if you come over here to Rio de Janeiro, you could at the start have max of 6 factories up here, and then this is going to go up. But even in some, it's just you just have a lot of areas where you can't build very many factories. So you're gonna have to build tall in some areas, and you may also have to straight out conquer, or instead of puppeting some areas, because you need the factories more than you need the population. And as Brazil, you do have quite a bit of population available to you. You've got over 500,000 at the start of the game while you're still on just volunteer only. So certainly better than someone like Paraguay or Ecuador can bring to the table. You are one of the big ABC countries, that being Argentina, Brazil, and Chile, here in South America. So you do have that going for you. All right, moving back over here. So this is going to give you a 200% bonus for radio. Obviously, don't take radio before you do this. All right, now the left branch here, General Staff, is going to send you down your land doctrine research tree. You can either do mass assault, which is going to give you two 100% research bonuses out of the gate, gives you more war support, and then this is probably the important one you're interested in, is Fatherland Volunteers, which will increase your recovery rate as well as increasing your recruitable population by 1%. Before finally going down here to Forager Squads, which lowers your heat attrition as well as division attrition in general, and then lowering supply consumption. So very useful when you're fighting in South America. Alternatively, you can go down Grand Battle Plan, which only gives you a 100% research bonus here. A little bit of army, both these are just, this one's just army experience. Keep an eye out, by the way, as to which ones are, which army experience focuses you're taking, because there is a path you could take later in the tree, which we'll talk about, that'll take away army experience. So if you're going to take that one, be sure you spend it while you got it. Then you got Planning Staff, this gives you your other bonus, and then finally Planning Speed just goes up. So Mass Assault's probably better if you're hanging out in South America. Grand Battle Plan might be better if you're going overseas. So, bridging the archipelago also leads into logistic battalions, which leads into scouts and trackers, which gives you 200% research bonus on your signal company and reconnaissance company. if you have motorized technology. And yes, I know you don't need motorized to you don't need to have motorized technology to normally research reconnaissance companies. You do need it though to research this focus. This leads down into uniting the army, which actually requires you to have standardized equipment as well. So let's take a peek over here real quick. Military equipment effort is just going to give you a 100% research bonus on industry, into standardized equipment, which is a 100% research bonus on infantry equipment. So once you have these four things, and by the way, these almost every single, actually I think every single focus in Brazil takes 56 days. I don't think there's any 71s. So you want to time things out that way. Just keep that in mind. It takes 2 weeks less for every focus than a normal country. But once you've taken United the Army, this is only going to give you 5 Army experience. But as it says, uniting the Army under federal control is a deeply politically costly endeavor. Consider your options wisely. This is in reference to the divided military national spirit you have, which is hurting your organization and your planning speed. So you have 2 options. You can go left, where you first adapt state militias into hierarchy, and that's going to take away 40 army experience. So this is what I was talking about, where if you've got army experience before that from other focuses, be sure to spend it before you take this, obviously. This will eventually lead down to regionalist recruiting tactics, which modifies the divided military into national militias, increasing your organization and planning speed, and effectively giving you a national spirit where you'll just have 5% more division organization. Now, if you do this path after uniting the army, it's going to take 1, 2, 3, 4 focuses to do. Your other option after uniting the army is you can go directly into the federal army. So it only takes 1 focus for you to get rid of divided military, but you're going to have to spend 200 political power and 30% base stability. So it's you're paying, but you're saving time. But it gets a little bit more complex than that, because down here you have one of your research slots, military science. So you have to think to yourself, it's more than just, okay, I'm going to take federal army and then I'm done with this branch. I'll just pay the money. I'll pay the political power and stability. You also got to keep going at some point if you want to get that research slot, which I'm sure everybody wants to do. So that's another thing that you have to think about in terms of balancing. Also, you will not get a bonus of organization over here, whereas over here you do get that slight increase. Besides that, the left and right path are basically the same. This is just 25 army experience. This is 20 army experience. This gives you some war support. Like, they're not huge deals. Now down here, this is where things are kind of cool. You can get access to jungle warfare. So every unit with legs will get additional attack, defense, and movement in the jungle. You also have the Federal Intervention Corps, which increases your Special Forces capacity multiplier. And Marines and Mountaineers are very useful, of course, in South America with all of its bad terrain and stuff. Especially when, you can also say paratroopers as well. You're just worried about that mountain? Just fly over it. All right, moving to the right. The other branches that come out of the military equipment effort, it's pretty standard stuff. You have Brazilian small arms here, so this just leads to various bonuses for your military equipment. You do get 2 100% research bonuses for armor technology, so if you do want to commit the time, you could catch up with the rest of the world if you want to do that. I'm not sure how helpful tanks are going to be in the Amazon, but it all depends on where you're fighting, right? And you actually can get rocketry and jet technology bonuses, which is, I think, interesting. Over here, renewing the state arsenals. This is industry stuff, giving you military factories, and it's also where you get your 4th research slot, or 5th. That's another thing that you want to consider when you're deciding how you want to spend your time before the election, because these are the only things you can do before the election. So again, I really encourage you to plot out, okay, I've got like basically 10 months, 56 days each. How many focuses can I take, and where do I want to focus those focuses? So you could, for example, rush down here to military engineering advancements and get yourself a research slot, or you could work on these 4 over here, get down to unite the army and be in a position where you can get ready to go to the military science, and like, if you want to do federal army, for example, because then as soon as you've got the election, you want to be focusing all your time on the political stuff. You again, figure it out for yourself. Now, after you've done Needs of War, which gives you more industry bonuses, you then have these 4 focuses, which are going to give you resources. Now, Brazil does not have much in the way of resources. At the start of the game, you just have 4 steel, 30 rubber, 4 aluminum, and then another 70 rubber here. So you have lots of rubber, but that's pretty much it. Hopefully maybe some people will trade with you so you get some more factories, but there's no guarantee of that. What you could do here is you could do things like Rubber Army, which gives you even more rubber. There's the Oil Wells of Lobato, which gives you a little bit of oil in Bahia, like the song. There's the establishment of the CSN, which I might go over. Let's see how long this guide starts going. But basically, it's an event where you can ask people to invest, and you also are choosing where in Brazil to invest. It basically will determine how much steel you get. It's not too complicated. And I probably won't even go over it. But check it out for yourself. If you just want regional steel, you don't want to be importing steel, go down here to the CSN. And you have chromium mining if you want chrome, which could be good if you want a navy, for example. Now, who are we kidding? You're going to be building some super heavy tanks, right? For the Amazon. All right, continuing to move right, you have the air doctrine stuff, which is pretty standard. Anti-air is over here, though, under the air tree, so keep that in mind. Nothing too crazy here, other than, well, it's not crazy, but if you want to get the naval bombers, you could go down this way, or you can go through the naval branch. Over here in the Navy, your two options are you can go for the fleet and being or trade interdiction, so not really much in terms of carriers. You do have carrier experiments down here, but I'm not sure Brazil is able to sustain that. But, it's your game. You can do whatever you want here. Marines are over here behind the coastal forts. Oh, yeah, I forgot to mention that. You could also do southern strongholds down here in Sao Paulo. It could bypass, though, if you end up getting the Civil War where Sao Paulo breaks away. So think about that. Keep that in mind. Anyway, submarines, stray packs, all of this is pretty standard stuff. The merchant marines lower your trade convoy costs, kind of like that one, what is it called, Liberty ships that you can get as the United States. And keep an eye on which ones you need to take to get down here. These actually are not exclusive, but it's just, you can get bonuses for everything. You just got to go find it. I don't think they need to be crazy. This is fine. This is fine. All right, now let's talk about political stuff. You have Republican government, which is the social conservatives, social democratic government, social liberal government, market liberal government, the coup down here. I'll talk about that in detail, as well as the regency and the new state. All of these are going to be locked off to you until you get at least to the election of 1936. So we're going to focus on doing that now. So from you really do not get any notable. Hold on a second. You do not get anything of note in terms of. Hold on. A little trouble here. A lot of save files we got to go through. In terms of events until the election, you get lots of flavor. Don't get me wrong. So that's pretty nice. Great picture. But nothing that's going to affect what political branch you go down until you're in October, November of 1936. So here's an example of it. Luis Carlos Presetes endorses the ED. I'm not going to talk about what all these political parties are because I end up doing that quite a bit in my Brazil campaign. So, federal election of 1936. You'll have 4 options to choose from. Vargas and the Partido Republicano. So this will give you the social conservatives in power and potentially also bring you down here to the new state. You have Julio Prestes and the Partido Liberal, so you get liberal government. Gustavo Dot Barrasso and the, I never know how to pronounce this, Integralist Brasilia. I never know how to pronounce this word. That's the National Populace, which will immediately jump you into the Regency. And then Manga Vieira and the Izquierda Democrática, which is this government here. You'll notice you have no access initially to the market liberals. That comes later if you continue to have elections, and that's really all there is to it. So we're not going to be talking about them in detail, except for how they work. So actually, for right now, let's just click Vargas. But also, you'll notice you do not change governments right away. It takes about a month. So if you're working on some other focus, you could cancel it, I guess, if you want. But you probably just want to finish that out. Now, the way the democratic ones work in general is it's similar to how the Pacific States of America works, where they are not mutually exclusive, and every election, if you elect a new party into power, you now get access to new focuses. And some of them you can work with more than one government type. So, for example, we just elected the Republicano government. So this means we can go down into things like crushing interstate banditry, but we also can go into the PSI, Jack Reed one, into the PSI, which is how you're going to deal with the Great Depression, because what's going to happen, like what happens to so much of the world a little bit after the game starts, is you're going to have to deal with the Black Monday fallout, which is going to lower in your case, is a particularly bad one. Construction speed's down by 35%, resources to market is down by 30%, factory output minus 40%, and production efficiency cap minus 20%. This resources to market thing can actually be funny because then you get a little bit of steel back, so it's almost a good thing, but really, you don't want this. Now, the way you get rid of this, for example, if you go with the Republicano government, is you go with PSI, then down here to protecting our industry, which is going to take you to recovering from recession, which is going to really help take the worst of it off. Down here is regulating imports, which just gives you a tiny bonus for industry. It's really not that great. But more civilian factories, more oil, and you can also seek capital, which gives you some 30% research bonuses if you get Germany and the British, respectively, to help you. Now, over here, under the Republican government, you get more stability. One infrastructure, I swear that's true, one infrastructure here, moral and civica, is going to reduce your, reduces your daily political power costs by a bit. You get a popularity boost here, more political power, more research speed, more civilian factories. Down here at the Ground National Accord, this is how you will get rid of Wake of War. So that's the one here, which is costing you a few things. And you really got to get rid of Wake of War if you want to truly get aggressive as Brazil. I probably should talk about that. There's not anything here that is going to directly have you, except for some stuff down here under the Organic Empire, there's nothing here that directly declares war on people. For example, you're not going to have something where you just take a focus and you attack Argentina. Argentina can attack you, they very likely will, but you yourself will have to do things manually if you want to be expanding. So, effectively, whenever you see that focus that says remove Wake of War, that's the green light essentially saying, okay, go start expanding now. And you can pick your targets. Motorization research speed is the last thing that you get under the Republicans, which is a little bit weird. And you know what, I'm probably not going to go through every single one of these because the guide's going to be long enough, but take the time to just go through and read what each of these do whenever you're picking your starting one. Because they each do different things, and you can maybe choose to go down one path and then later go down another. And it's very much a hodgepodge. Some of it's industry stuff, some of it's political power, some of it is resources. For example, state taxation reforms, this is 200 political power you can get here. Under the market liberals, there was a really... You get a lot of political power. Oh, no. It was this bad one. That was it. The fiscal reforms. So this costs you 100 political power, and in return, you can do civilian to military conversion cost minus 30%. Now, I personally don't do that strategy of factory conversion. I have heard of that, though. Some people say just build civilian factories for a couple of years, and then when you can convert over, it's worth it in the end. I've not personally done the math on that, but I know that is a strategy people sometimes do. So maybe you're into that, but for me, this is like a terrible focus. So again, take the time, look through here, and find out what you want to do. Now, now speaking of things that I don't understand why people would want to do it, is this one here between the Social Democrats and the Social Liberals, where you have heavy-handed development. So the first focus here gives you inflation, which is going to reduce your production efficiency cap by 15%, as well as factory output by 35%. And in return, you get one civilian factory. But it's just the start of the focus tree, right? This branch of it. You just basically get a bunch of, well, there's a couple of civilian factories here. So you get 4 factories in total. And then you can get 5 infrastructure. And then at the end, you'll get rid of inflation because that was the price you had to pay to do all that. I personally think that's a horrible trade-off, and I would never take it. But maybe there's somebody out there who wants to do it. Now, you can go down some of these branches if you elect somebody. So, for example, the Republicano government will eventually, if you so choose, lead into the new state tree. Same thing with the Social Democrats. this, if you elect them, you can eventually do the coup, which will open up one of these branches for you. But there's nothing stopping you from beginning to take these focuses, and then you switch it over to, you know, the new state. So let's jump ahead now to, I have a lot of save files, but some of them I've decided to skip because I don't want to load something up just to here we go. I think it's this one, New Era Dawns. Because I don't think we need to load up something just to look at one event. So this is a path. This particular save file is where Vargas has been elected. Note, it is now April of 1939. And you'll see Vargas is social conservative. So don't pay too much attention of what's been researched here. I'm not saying that this is optimal by any means. This is just testing stuff. But as you can see here, in this particular save file, I crushed interstate banditry to get a little bit of political power reduction cost every day. And I went down here and I got some industry stuff. Now, when you have Vargas in power, you'll get a couple of events, just a couple, where Vargas is, you know, he's meeting with the army, he's trying to consolidate with people, and you'll essentially have to trade off. You'll have to take something negative in order for Vargas to become more powerful. So, for example, it might be something like minus 10% stability for Vargas to take more power. And the tooltip is very helpful, so just hover over it, and it'll tell you that if you choose not to take the negative penalty, Vargas will stop attempting to, you know, acquire more power, centralize his authority, and you'll just continue to be democratic, and eventually you'll have another election, right? So it's 1939, and you'll now get this, a new era dawns, the new state. Everything is proceeding as planned. You will lose 10 stability, get 100 political power, and the paternal autocrats will get 20% more popular, as well as becoming the ruling party. You'll also get some brand new ministers here. So let's just take a second here. You'll bypass the new state. Pause. Okay, so your new ministers here. More army experience, more max planning, faster land fort construction speed. This guy never really matters. Daily political power gain, construction speed, and production efficiency cap is up. And Orlando here is reducing your political power gain, but you get a bit of encryption off of that. So now Vargas is in power, and the paternal autocrats are just going to be at 21%, but now have access to everything here under the new state. So this is kind of the slowest way to go down a path, a political path, is by taking this one, not counting the market liberals. So this one, let's go through these. These ones are, it's basically focused around, you take something negative, you get something good in return. So for example, crushing state power will increase your popularity by 30%. So it's a huge boost. It's going to more than double what you start with, but you're going to lose 200 political power. However, you also finally will get rid of, it's a really quick way, relatively quick, because remember it's 1939, way to get rid of extreme decentralization, which is lowering your stability and decreasing your daily political power gain. So if you just want to, boom, 56 days, get rid of it, there you go. Another example of that is, this is actually not so bad, but you know, lower your army experience by 20. Again, spend it if you got it before you take this, and get 20% stability. And then you have Auromane, minus 200 political power, lower stability, but you get a little bit more factory output. So after you've gotten these done, the worst of it's really over, because, well, yeah, you're spending 400 political power between these three things. Some of these are kind of weak, like you only get 2 infrastructure down here, but consolidating the state, this gives you 200, so you could think of it like a down, like you pay it here, you get it back down there. Defanging the opposition. Once you take this, you'll probably be close to 100% popularity, because it's gonna minus 20% everybody else. The left should have already been dead by then, because or wait, what is it? Wait, what's the one? There's one that gets rid of every leftist ideology. That might be a different branch. But yeah, you'll basically be at 100% popularity by the time you get down here. New youth is really good. It's a 5% recruitable population boost. So again, there's give and take, because a 5% recruitable population, that means you're saving money on conscription laws, right? And of course you have election monitors. You want fraud happening, right? And eventually you get down here to the new state realize, which gives you a huge 0.30 reduction in political power cost a day. That is like, I don't think Peru has it anymore. Peru used to have this just nuts focus, which would do like, it was something like that where you got a third of a political power point a day, as well as I think a 33% reduction on all land, air, and sea doctrines. So it's you know, that's the prize waiting for you at the end. So it's a big time investment, it's a big political power investment, but there's definitely some good stuff waiting for you. Oh, here it is. Plan Cohen. This is the one that gets rid of everybody on the left. So you get rid of everybody on the left, you get rid of everybody in the middle, as well as the National Populists. You're going to be at 100%. Don't worry about it. We're close enough not to matter. And remember, increased popularity also leads to increased political power gain per day. So that's basically how the new state of Brazil works. So let's take a look at a different brand. Come on now. All right. So, oh wait, there's one more thing I wanted to show you though. So after you end up with, whoops, I just reloaded the same file. I'm so sorry. But there is going to be something that's going to happen, and this is going to be a regular occurrence. I'm not going to talk about it. Just basically be prepared for a civil war to happen at any moment. But for example, if we little bit of time pass here in Brazil, you do the new state and whatever. Also, be sure to pay attention to your companies, because you have some that are pretty interesting. So, it's now May of 1939. You'll get a constitutionalist revolt, and Sao Paulo will break away. So you'll have to fight a little civil war. These are usually pretty easy to win. They could kind of, in fact, you might want to drag them out so you can grind for army experience, for example. Not the worst idea in the world is all I'm saying. You should know that whenever these civil wars break out, though, as far as my testing shows, if you are in a fight with somebody else, like let's say you're fighting Argentina or whatever, you will drop out of the war because you have to fight the civil war. I don't know why exactly that happens, because then in theory your opponents, your enemies could then just use the civil war to take advantage of you, but that's how it works. Okay, just as a heads up. All right, let's move on. We're gonna look now at this path. So you could get the National Populist president in power in 1936. So you just elect him. You don't have to do a coup or anything like that. And and you'll have integralist Brazil, which is really different from how it was back in the day. So just a heads up. Now, if you do this path, you immediately have access to your political focus tree, just like if you had done any other, democratically elected path. But you kind of have this breather area where you are, whereas over here with the new state, you have a lot of your political popularity stuff at the bottom. Here, your party popularity stuff is at the top. So you have a lot of these 10% boosts to your party popularity, but you also get a couple of ones that increase your political power. You also get some army experience here in the middle. But this is essentially a transition period, which we're just going to rush through here. Whoops. Again, using Focus Autocomplete because this is not a freaking playthrough, it's a guide. So I don't want to hear about the cheating. Wah, wah, wah. Okay, Imperial Coronation. Today is a great day for Brazil. Dom Pedro III de Orleans Braganca was crowned as emperor, etc., etc. Vivo o Imperador, vivo o Brazil. So this gives you 150 political power, and you're now the Empire Brazil, and you get a slightly different color. It's a little bit brighter now. So once you've done that, now you're actually into the meat of your tree, which gets pretty interesting. And this actually is the path that I'm going down in my gameplay, so I'm not going to talk about it too much. But for example, you could just instantly get rid of the Wake of War now that you've done this, as opposed to... Shoot, where did it go? Where was the Wake of War one here? I'm so sorry. There's so much to keep track of. I should have made notes. But yeah, you get it done faster, is what I'm saying, than if you went the other way. So you can instantly get rid of that. Another one that's interesting is down here is the Imperial Green Guards, which gives you 1.5 recruitable population. It ain't 5%, but it ain't bad either. You also, because integralism is kind of based in like Afro-Brazilians and equality of the races and stuff, you get some good interesting stuff like here, like criminalizing racist offenses. It's going to cost you political power, but you get 20% stability. You can also safeguard African culture, which is going to give you another 100 political power, as well as 2% base stability. Over here is the Organic Empire, which will give you a 0.12 daily political power gain. And then you come down here to some cisplantine stuff. Now, this is where you actually can take a focus and go to war with people. I'm not going to talk about this too much because this is in my playthrough, but you could get, it's really interesting because like you can work with Portugal. You can send them guns to help them out. Like you increase those ties there, but you could also end up getting involved in Africa if the collapse happens. So it's pretty interesting stuff. You also get Imperial Dragoons, which I think is funny because it's cavalry attack and defense, not exactly something people use too often. But that could possibly be helpful in Africa, for example, where things are really slow. Anyway, there's just one more branch I want to go into. Again, I'm not going into every single little thing here because like it's just an intro guide. All right. If you have questions, put them in the comments, and I'll try to fill in any gaps that are there. All right. Coup attempt. The army would have no more. So this is a path. Note how it's 1938. This is a path where if you go social democratic, you will have some events where you can get stability or you can get political power and things like that. Under the Social Democrats, you're just trying to create this new nation. You're trying to, create a social democratic government, social democratic economy, etc., etc. And you were partnering with the people on the left, like the Maximitos and the syndicalists and the radical socialists and stuff. Now, after a while, there is potentially going to be a coup. No, there will be a coup attempt. There will be a coup attempt from the army. And you have two options here. You can say they shall not pass, where you stop the coup attempt. It's going to take away 20% stability, 200 political power, 200 manpower, but social democrats become more popular, and then you'll just be on the social democratic path. You'll just be there. Nothing will change other than all those points you lost. However, you could have a coup attempt. You could have the coup attempt be successful, in which case you will still lose 200 political power and 10 stability, and then Brazil becomes authoritarian democrat under Dutra here. Again, I'm not talking about the generals too much because, there's a lot of them and there's some interesting history there. It's going to take it too long, but you'll be authoritarian democrat, which is 2% popularity. However, this is a trick. Believe me, you're still on the coup path, or I should say the left path. You'll have then a syndicalist counter coup. Brazil will be liberated from capitalism, so then again minus 200 political power, minus 20 stability, minus 3,000 manpower, minus 30 army experience, and you become the United Communes of Brazil. So maybe you don't. Oh, hey, cool. Indo-Chinese revolt succeeded at the same time. It's interesting. Oh, Russia's having a hard time. So here's the thing, though. You might be thinking, oh no, but I don't want to be syndicalist. I want to be something else because there are the different paths here. Well, just give it a little bit of time, and you will then get to choose which of these three paths that you want to go down. All right, here we go. You'll have your first Congress of the Trade Unions, a little bit later than Britain's, and basically you can choose to go radical socialist, syndicalist, or totalist. Let's just take totalist, whatever, it doesn't really matter right now. The Union of Brazil will be proclaimed. Okay. Now, once you've done that, you'll then have a war to fight. This is going to happen no matter which path you pick. In this case, it's Bahia and Rio Grande do Sul, under Vargas, as you can see, who are going to break away from you. So again, be ready for that civil war. But right now, let's take a look at, well, let's let this focus finish. Okay. You then could go down whatever respective branch it is that you have chosen. And again, I'm not going to go over all of this in its entirety, but it's basically, you get more political power. Sometimes you have to pay political power. You get more popularity, things like that. So the Maximists are kind of interesting because, for example, here you lose stability to get political power, but then you immediately pay some of that political power back to get totalism and things like that. So extreme decentralism, you'll get rid of it down here once you get to AI 5. Another interesting one. I'm trying to point out like one interesting one in each of these. The one. Yeah, here it is. Love it or leave it. This gives you a huge 40% war support. If instead you were to go syndicalist, you go down the middle here. This one is mostly based around political power, so you get a lot of base reduction costs. So for example, I think if you add up this whole section, you're doing about a minus 25 0.25 of a political power point a day. That's just on the left there. This leads into the Union of Brazil, which will give you a 0.01 reduction in cost, but you get 5% more factory output, pardon me, dockyard output, production efficiency cap, production efficiency growth, things like that. Brazilian consciousness gives you the flat 200, and what was it? Here we go. Dealing with reactionaries. This is where the purge happens, basically. It's also going to cost you army experience as a heads up. You also have Red Army, which was equally as strong as a New Youth. Either way, you'll get a 5% boost to your recruitable population. Finally, you have the Radical Socialists over here, which, let's see, this is a cool one, Ending Hunger. That gives you more monthly population. Extreme decentralization is gotten rid of down here. By the way, left front, this is how you get rid of Wake of War if you're going socialist. So you might want to come down here as a heads up before the coup happens. You might want to rush that. What was the other? There was one more interesting one. Oh yeah, this one, yeah. Aiding the poor under political power. Oh wait, no, that's not it. There's another really cool one. Christian socialism, because haha. Oh, this was it, yeah. People's Militia, another 5% recruitable population. I'm so sorry that I'm having to like spend a couple of minutes searching for these. I'll definitely take notes again. And then, I'll just remember it all. But no, there's a lot of branches. Anyway, so there you have it. That is basically Brazil. I've shown you how to go down every single path. I've explained to you how these work, how to get rid of the Black Mondays and things like that. Each branch definitely has its pros and cons. But just keep in mind, you're going to be wanting to get rid of Wake of War. You want to, whatever branch you go, the things that you have to keep an eye out for is civil wars. You're not going to really be able to expand until you get rid of Wake of War, or at least you'll be going very slowly. And I said I wasn't going to talk about the generals until it's its own video, but take some time to really look through here, because you do not have a lack of options, that is for sure, in terms of generals. You can do cavalry, you've got marines, you've got an expert delegator here, that's freaking awesome, so that means you can put 7 armies in there with him. And you're going to have a slow start. Remember that you need 20 divisions before you're allowed to send volunteers anywhere. So for example, if you want to interfere in the American Civil War, you better start cranking out some militias or something. But once you get up and running, once your economy is strong, you can have easily one of the bigger armies in South America, if not the biggest, because you have a huge recruitable population pool. And beyond conscription law, as I've shown you, several of these paths have ways to, such as the Red Army, People's Militia, and New Youth, and even to a lesser extent the not Heroic Cult. What's the other one? Damn it, the one that gives a 1.5. Brazilian Imperial Green Guards, that's it. So you have lots of ways, even outside of your conscription law tree, to increase your recruitable population. So Brazil is a slow start, but I think it's designed that way so that you don't just eat up Brazil, the whole continent by 1939, and now all of a sudden you're the biggest power in the world or something like that. So a lot of fun to be had, and that's basically it. Let me know in the comments any questions you have, things that you would maybe want me to go into a little bit more detail on. But I think this is enough for an introductory guide. Please subscribe if you have not already. Go check out my Brazil campaign if I don't have it up yet. It should be up in a day or so. And remember, if you're a Patreon who donates at least $5 a month to support the channel, you can request a specific guide. It doesn't necessarily have to be Kaiserreich. Thank you, Nitro Game, for suggesting this one. I could do Equestrian War, Fuhrer Reich, things like that. Is there anything else? No, I think that's it. Oh, and keep an eye out also for my Politicians and Generals of Brazil video, which will be something separate, as I've mentioned. I'm Conquering History Games, and you have yourself a wonderful day. Goodbye.